the Pareto distribution is a statement of economic science. And it basically says that the square root of the number of people in a domain produce half the output. And so let's say if there's recording artists, if there's 1,000 recording artists, 30 of them will produce half the records. And then of that half the records, let's say that's 100 records, just for the sake of argument. So 30 of them produce 100 records. 10 of them will sell half the copies. Okay, so that's the square root law, and it's a killer law. So it means if there's 10,000 recording artists, 100 of them will sell half the records.
And if I could, for some of the listeners, because that sounds a little complicated, but I think Pareto also came up with this principle when he was gardening with peas. And I think that the peas, he found that like 20% of the shoots produced 80% of his peas. And then he started looking at sort of the businesses, and he found that 20% of his employees are producing 80% of the results. 20% of the employees might be producing 80% of the problems. So there's a way to
let's focus on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at criminal behavior. Okay, so first of all, it's about 5% of men mostly who are criminals, but 95% of the criminal activity is created by a very small proportion of that criminal population. So hardly anyone is criminal, first. Of the criminals, hardly anyone is a serial criminal. But the serial criminals commit all the crimes. Okay, so now let's put that in terms of men. Hardly any men are sexual predators. Of the small percentage of men who are sexual predators, there is a specialty group who commits all the sexual serial crimes, and they can involve themselves with hundreds of women or thousands of women. So the environment for catastrophe that they produce is massive, but that does not mean that it's characteristic of all men. And that's something that's getting seriously lost in the shuffle.